Hello, hi, welcome. This is the first episode of this thing I'm doing. I think I'm going to call it Bruiser News. It's basically punk and hardcore, kind of alternative culture news, kind of the hottest and freshest headlines of the day. And today, there's some sad stories, there's some bad stories, but there's also some cool stuff to get into. So before we get going, my name is Dan Frampton. I'm the Friendly Neighborhood Gatekeeper. And our first story of the day, the top story that we're going to be talking about, is this unfortunately devastatingly sad story about the Polaris guitarist Ryan Sue, who died at age 26. Now, if you go over to their Instagram profile over here, about a week ago, they made this post saying that they were going to cancel some Europe dates because there was like a personal issue going on in the band. And it was announced yesterday that the sad thing that happened was that their guitarist had died, okay? Now, I just want to send my deepest condolences to the band, the friends, the family, everybody involved here. This is tragically sad, especially given all the variables. First variable, so young, age 26. Are you kidding me? That is as sad as you could possibly get. But wait, it gets worse. They have a record coming out in September called Fatalism. That's an insanely ironic title given the circumstances. But the album art looks sick and the merch looks awesome. So if you want to go support them, I'd say definitely they would appreciate it for sure. They had a European tours going on. They were just making moves. They put out this video and everything was kind of happening for this Australian band, Polaris, until this devastating news happened to them. Now, hopefully they can continue on. Hopefully they can band together and use this grief to create something great out of. But I would totally understand if that wasn't the case. So just whatever they need, however they want to grieve, whatever's going on with this band, with this family right now, I think we just gotta let it breathe and let them do their thing. I don't want to provide too much more commentary, but this is the biggest story of the day. Our next story of the day also involves a member of a band leaving, but this is the band Cruelty over here, Japanese kind of hardcore band, and this band over here is going to be losing their vocalist, okay? Now, if you haven't heard Cruelty, they are pretty brutal. They're a great band. I think they're very tight, very technical, but their vocalist was just like, hey, touring is a little crazy right now. You guys are a little bit too serious. Maybe I just want to hang back. We're going to go over to Brooklyn Vegan here. It says vocalist Tatami has left the band and guitarist Zuma will be taking over lead vocals. Zuma writes, I'm doing guitar and vocals, which means I'm the singer now. How do you express this situation in English correctly? Lol. Like crowbar or nails. Yeah, exactly. Or ingrown. I'm practicing hard now for our North American tour. So unfortunately, our original singer Tatami has quit the band as the schedule or attitude of us got too serious for him and he doesn't want to tour anymore. That is not acceptable for us. So that's a little bit of a language barrier, I think, that last line. That is not acceptable for us. I think what's meant to be said there is we're not going to accept his quitting the band as our failure. We're going to keep pushing through. I'm not sure if this is drama or not, but it kind of does seem like it could go either way. I'm not exactly sure. Drama or language barrier? I don't know. But if I were in those shoes and I was playing these songs and now I had to learn all the lyrics to these songs and sing them as well, I think I'd feel a little bit excited and annoyed. You know what I mean? I'd be like, all right, time to step up. It's time to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and lead this band into success. Take this band from Japan all the way around the world and show us what you can do. So maybe you don't need a front man going back and forth, energizing the crowd or whatever. Maybe this is going to be the formula for Cruelty going on. And you know what? Maybe they do a couple dates and he's feeling, I don't love this so much, and maybe they find a vocalist. But right now, I'm pretty excited for what the future holds for Cruelty. And then we got to talk about our boy Jeff Rosenstock. He announces a new LP called Hell Mode. I can't wait for this thing. The singles and teasers coming off thing have got me so hyped. They're great songs and they're setting that bar really, really high. And as if the bar isn't already set that high because he is Jeff Rosenstock. Now, another exciting thing over here is the emergence of this new subgenre called newcore. It's been on the rise for a couple years now, with nu metal finding new grounds here in the 2020s and hardcore being really, really hot. So it's just natural that nu metal and hardcore would marry each other, and they did in this video over here, in this song over here called Soaking Nerves by Orthodox. This dropped and it's pretty friggin' sick. It definitely has that nu metal groove with a bunch of hardcore attitude. I think it's definitely worth checking out. But our feature story of the day comes to us from the New York Times. They just did a whole article about hardcore and featured the band ZULU in these photographs over here. And as you noticed, I don't normally read these articles word for word. I kind of show you the article to give you where it's coming from and then just kind of talk about the situation. But this one, I am going to read the entire article because this is very special. Hardcore is in such a beautiful, diverse place right now, and having the New York Times kind of celebrate that is going to be a very awesome thing, I think. But not only is it going to be awesome, it might actually be a little bit sanitary and homogenized for like a normie audience, you know what I mean? I don't think we're going to get a lot of like hardcore cuts here, but I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to make it more palatable to the New York Times audience, which I think is great, you know? I don't think that putting hardcore music in front of this audience is going to turn any of them into hardcore listeners, but people that want to be aware of current events and what's going on right now need to know about this scene. Hardcore punk is looking and sounding different now. People of color, women, and queer musicians are remaking hardcore's long-standing image of white male aggression and producing some of its most interesting music. And then we get this wonderful shot of ZULU. This was written by Hank Steamer and it came out on June 6, 2023. One afternoon in April, in between sets at the day-long hardcore festival, three fans, Shawnee Nanji, 23, Dominique Wooten, 25, and Elizabeth Zaldivar, 31, all in town from Atlanta, stood in the backyard of a roomy, bare-bones Bushwick venue, the Brooklyn Monarch, breaking down how they've seen their musical community change. Alright, so we're setting up this article, this feature, as kind of a narrative with these three characters at the forefront. Wooten, like her friends, a woman of color, recalled meeting Nanji at a hometown show featuring Jesus Peace, a spectacularly intense Philadelphia band whose vocalist Aaron Hurd is black and drummer Louis Aponte is Puerto Rican. This was the first time I saw people of color on stage, Wooten said, and I was like, oh wow. And that's always been what hardcore has been like. People going there not knowing what to expect and then being like, oh my god, this is what I needed in my life. So in the year 2023, to see that hardcore is still doing that, but to more people right now, is very exciting. Zaldivar turned to Wooten. "You were one of the first brown, black girls I've seen at a show," she said. So that was the moment for sure. The three exchanged smiles. "What I've seen is more people that are going to shows," Nanji added. "They're seeing the bands and they're like, I want to do that." So more diversity is pushing them to start their own bands. "The scene as a whole has expanded," Wooten said. "It's growing. It's evolving. Our little hardcore scene is a Pokemon. Gotta catch 'em all." The day's lineup, a showcase for the respected Baltimore and New York label Flat Spot, illustrated how hardcore is rapidly diverging from its former status as an outlet for largely white male aggression. Flat Spot is a great record label. Probably my favorite one right now, if I'm being honest with you. The three friends from Atlanta arrived just in time to catch the end of a raucous set by Buggin', a Chicago quartet featuring a caustic shout from its non-binary black singer, Brianna Bennett. Also, just this pause right here, Buggin', amazing band. If you haven't checked out Buggin' yet, Jesus Peace, or any band off Flat Spot, please take all these shout outs and run with them. And I gotta say, hearing all of these words come out of the mouth of New York Times is pretty dang cool. The bill also included two female-fronted acts, Baltimore's Jive Bomb and Scowl from Santa Cruz, California. Australia Speed, featuring members of Asian descent, Colombia's Raw Brigade, and Regulate, whose Colombia-born frontman Sebastian Paba grappled with Eurocentric beauty standards on the 2022 track, Hair. I love that song, Hair. It stands out like a sore thumb on the record, though. Every song on that thing is just like a hardcore banger, and then Hair comes on, and it's like this melodic little bop. 2 weeks earlier, Scal had hit the town as part of a tour package that included Jesus Peace and LA's ZULU, an all-black band whose March debut, A New Tomorrow, is a visionary fusion of cathartic heaviness, hip-hop flow, and artfully interwoven samples of classic R&B and reggae. It is an absolutely wonderfully constructed record. I love it. Other excellent recent albums exemplify a diversity that, set against the larger context of rock and metal, seems almost utopian. I think if you're looking at it at the surface like that, it might seem like it's utopian, but you know, it's not really a utopia. There are faults in the hardcore scene, for sure. Just because it's beautiful and special doesn't make it a utopia. They feature band members who are black, non-binary, or transgender, and they shout out Soul Glow, Turnstile, Gel, Escuela Grind, Great band. See You Space Cowboy, awesome band. See You Space Cowboy is a little bit of an older band, of a deeper vintage. Now more than ever, it feels like what hardcore should have been, says Annihilee, 26, Zulu's frontman and founder, reflecting on the current makeup of the scene during an April call. 2 upcoming festivals centered around artists of color, Break Free Fest taking place in Philadelphia over Juneteenth weekend, and Tribes of the Moon happening at a New York Bowery Ballroom in August, will capture a scene in transition. I do feel like eventually I will look back on this time and refer to it in one way or another as the good old days, says the Soul Glow frontman Pierce Jordan, 30, via phone. Because I've been having a lot of fun lately, and I definitely feel way less lonely as a black rocker than I have ever in my life. And that's just beautiful to hear that people are feeling that way right now, you know? And Soul Glow, like my favorite band. Hardcore, a faster, more feral American response to early British punk, didn't start out homogenous. In the late 70s and early 80s, Bad Brains, the black Rastafarian band originally from Washington, D.C., that famously juxtaposed a turbocharged intensity with the gentle throb of roots reggae, set an early benchmark for speed and virtuosity in the subgenre. And at various times, Black Flag, the pillar of West Coast hardcore, featured members born in Puerto Rico, as well as the bassist Kira Rossler, who was one of the few women to feature prominently in early hardcore. But by the 90s, as Bad Brains shuffled members and operated fitfully, hardcore crystallized around a white male stereotype. Yes, when people think of hardcore, they think of bands like Madball wearing tank tops and carrying baseball bats, you know, that kind of thing. Artists of color still make an impact, including the future Rage Against the Machine frontman Zach De La Rocha, then a member of the California Inside Out, and Shaka Malik of Burn, who will appear at Tribes of the Moon. Now we just want to go back to that stereotype point for a little bit. When people think of like guys in tank tops and bandanas, a lot of those dudes that they're actually thinking are Puerto Rican. But people don't want to think too much about it. They're just like, that's the violent music for the violent people. Though as documented in James Spooner's illuminating 2003 documentary Afropunk, which spawned a festival of the same name, fans and musicians who were minority group members often found themselves on the fringes of the scene. I was in high school in New York City in the 90s, and that audience was very brown, you know, said Spooner, 46, who also co-edited the upcoming anthology Black Punk Now. But he added, what those people all had in common was that they were going to talk about how alone we feel in this room. That isolation carried through the larger generations. Every single day, the phrase, "You are the whitest black person I ever met," was spoken to me, said Soul Glow's Jordan, looking back at his Maryland youth. And that definitely damaged me mentally, my psyche, and made me kind of insane. Yeah, I could totally see how that would just like screw with your identity, for sure. Others struggle to find suitable role models. The ZULU drummer and vocalist Christine Cadet, 23, cited Paramore's Hayley Williams as a key inspiration, but also she said, I couldn't really relate because at the end of the day, she's a white cis female, so there's not really any females that look like me doing exactly that. Scout Cartagena, who uses gender-neutral pronouns, reflected on the lack of diversity within the underground that inspired them to start Break Free Fest in 2017. For a long time, it's been a struggle to see people on stage who looked like me or were talking about the things I cared about, they said. A typical sight was some suburban white punk kid talking about a breakup. I just wanted more, they said. That more has arrived in waves during the past decade. Short-lived but hugely impactful Gloss from Olympia, Washington brought a vociferous trans-feminist perspective to hardcore. ZULU situates the genre on a spectrum of progressive black thought. The band's 2019 debut EP, Our Day Will Come, opened with a sample of Nina Simone discussing the importance of black pride, and juxtaposed it with searing blast beats, walloping breakdowns, and a snippet of 1962 Malcolm X speech in which he posed the question, who taught you to hate yourself? On A New Tomorrow, both the songs, as well as Creme de la Cassis, a lovely mid-album spoken interlude by poet Elisa Miller, drove home the importance of celebrating black joy even when considering black pain. In From the Gods to Earth, Lee and Cadet ride off bellowed lines that first look to black slavery, 400 years and still hate, here I am, I won't forget. But then ahead to a time when clouds part and hope seeps through. People think that because we're in a heavy band, we're talking about black struggles. They expect us to be angry about it. But really there's things that we can enjoy and things we can do to celebrate, Cadet said. ZULU is not about aggression and all that. It's about love. For Cartagia, Lee's buoyant performance style is a welcome beacon. I say they have the best moves of any person on stage. Just like sliding and moonwalking and just moving their shoulders, they said. It just reminds me of my people. Yeah, Anaya has some of the best moves in the game. Some of the coolest and freshest moves I've ever seen, actually. Scowl's Kate Moss providing another alternative picture of how hardcore can be presented. Sporting dyed green hair and taking to the stage in dresses, skirts, and shiny white boots, she advances a staunchly feminine image in a genre that is often orbited around chest-thumping masculinity. An amped counterpart to the way Scowl's songs, formerly old-school rants, have given way to hooky, unabashedly fun hybrids. Well said, New York Times. A lot of big words you're using in here. I've had countless girls come up to me and be like, "You've inspired me to start wearing dresses and skirts to shows," Moss, 25, said. It does break my heart a little that there might have been a time where those girls didn't feel confident, and that I didn't feel confident, she said. In the days before female-fronted bands such as Jawstruck and Dying For It inspired her to participate in the scene, she recalls experiencing an uneasiness that she likened to the same feeling I'd get at a skate park when I was learning to skate and wishing I was a guy. Now here's a little bit of critique for you, New York Times. You might not want to use the term female-fronted bands. It just makes people feel kind of weird, you know? The 37-year-old videographer Sunny Singh, who has documented the hardcore's changing demographics in real time through his popular Hate56 YouTube channel, hopes for future generations the community's diverse makeup will simply seem like a given. "I want this to be the new normal," he said. Likewise, for the artist leading hardcore's new wave, diversity is worth championing. On its recent tour, Jesus Pieces Heard often dedicated Oppressor, a blistering anti-racist tirade to brown and black attendees. But it shouldn't be an endpoint in and of itself. I think that the scene honestly loves to tokenize anybody that they possibly can, whether it be female-fronted hardcore band or a black-fronted hardcore band, Heard 31 said. You see, that's why you don't want to use the terms female-fronted or black-fronted or black punk rock or girl band. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just a weird thing to attach to it. And if you want to use it as a bit of a descriptor to the music, yeah, guys' voices and girls' voices sound different, but you don't need to like qualify the band as female-fronted or black-fronted. That's just weird as hell. And that's just one of the barriers that needs to be broken down through this whole movement that we're talking about. Anaya Lee longs for a time when diversity in hardcore won't even need to be noted. Yeah, exactly, just what I was just saying. "I want to be included in the conversation that every other band has been included in," he said. Oh, and Bud, here on the channel, you definitely are. You 100% are right up there at the top of the bands that have ever existed in my mind. "It's time," he added, "for bands like ZULU to no longer be separated by being, oh, they're just a black band. No, we're a band. Not only are you a band, ZULU, Anaya Lee, you're a great band with an amazing message." Back at the Flat Spot Showcase, Elizabeth Zaldivar praised by the way that Buggin's timeless anthems like Poser Bulldozer transcended concerns of race and gender. "You don't always have to have some kind of message," she said, "because none of these white boys have a message per se. They're just having fun, so why can't we?" Yeah, exactly. And if that's the message, hey, I'm just out here to have fun, let me have fun, then that can be the message. You don't need to make it political at all. So overall, I think that's a pretty dang good article. There doesn't necessarily need to be any more deep cuts in here, and you don't need to get all like hardcore snobby about it, you know? I think they did a great job celebrating the culture, celebrating the scene, and like painting a picture of growth and opportunity. It's great. So that's it. That's the first episode of Bruiser News. I'm gonna change that name, but I just wanted something ridiculous to call it for the first time. We'll see as we go forward. I've been Dan Frampton. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a couple pancakes down there in the comments before you bounce on out of here. Ring the bell if you're cool as hell. It'll notify you when a new upload happens. And until my next upload, you can watch another upload.